Once upon a time, in a quiet village where dust rose with every footstep and secrets traveled faster than the wind, there lived a girl no one ever noticed. Her name was Amara, not because it mattered. In that village, names only mattered if people said them out loud, and no one said hers. Every morning, before the sun even thought about rising, Amara was already awake, sweeping floors no one praised her for, fetching water no one thanked her for, cooking meals no one waited for her to join. If she disappeared one day, most people would only notice the chores not being done. That was her life. Invisible. But here's the strange part. Amara saw everything. She saw how people smiled at the rich man's daughter, even when she said nothing worth hearing. She saw how boys laughed louder around girls they admired. She saw how teachers called on students they believed in, and skipped the ones they didn't. She learned something early. Attention is not given. It is taken or earned. But Amara didn't know how to take it, so she chose something harder. She decided to earn it, quietly, without telling anyone, without asking for permission, without expecting applause. At night, when the village slept and the lanterns burned low, Amara would sit outside her small room, a single candle flickering beside her, a torn notebook in her lap. And she would write, not because anyone asked her to, but because it was the only place she felt seen. Her words became her voice. In a world that refused to hear her speak, days turned into weeks, weeks turned into years. Still no one noticed. Not when she improved, not when she learned, not when she grew stronger inside. Sometimes she would pause and wonder, is anyone ever going to see me? And the silence would answer back. But she kept going, because something deep inside her whispered, not yet. One afternoon something happened. It seemed small, almost nothing, but it changed everything. The village school announced a competition, a storytelling contest. The winner would have their story read in front of the entire town during the annual festival. For most people, it was just entertainment. For Amara, it felt like a door, a small, fragile, almost invisible door. And she knew this might be her only chance. But fear spoke quickly. What if they laugh? What if no one cares? What if you're still invisible? For the first time in years, Amara almost gave up. She held her notebook that night, staring at pages filled with thoughts no one had ever read. Then she did something different. She asked herself one question. What if they finally see me? That question was enough. She entered the competition, quietly. Of course, no announcements, no excitement, no one cheering her on. Just her name written on a list, among names that already mattered more. The days leading up to the contest felt heavier than anything she had carried before. Not because of the work, but because of hope. Hope is dangerous when you're used to being ignored. It makes you imagine things you're afraid won't come true. Finally, the day came. The entire village gathered. Colorful clothes, loud laughter, music in the air. Names were called one by one. Confident voices filled the stage. People clapped, smiled, nodded. Then, a pause. A name barely recognized. Amara. For a moment, no one reacted. Some people even looked around, unsure who that was. And then slowly she walked forward. Not confidently, not perfectly, but steadily. Her heart was loud. So loud she thought the entire village could hear it. She stood in front of everyone who had never seen her. And for the first time in her life, they were all looking at her. Silence fell. The kind of silence that feels heavy. The kind that makes you want to run. But Amara didn't run. She opened her notebook. Her hands shook. Her voice almost didn't come out. But then, she began. And something strange happened. The more she spoke, the quieter the world became. Her story wasn't about kings or queens. It wasn't about magic or riches. It was about a girl who felt invisible, a girl who watched life happen without being part of it, a girl who kept going, even when no one cared. As she spoke, people stopped whispering. They stopped shifting. They started listening, really listening, because for the first time, they weren't hearing just words. They were hearing truth, and maybe their own too. By the time she reached the end, the village was completely still. No movement, no noise, just a deep, quiet understanding. Amara closed her notebook. For a second, nothing happened. And then, one person clapped. Then another. Then another. Until the entire village rose into a sound Amara had never heard before. Applause. Not polite. Not forced. Real. Loud. Unstoppable. For the first time in her life, she wasn't invisible. But here's where the story changes. Because success didn't just come that day. That moment didn't magically fix everything. What it did was open eyes. People began to notice her. They greeted her. They asked her questions. They wanted to hear more. But Amara didn't change who she was. She didn't suddenly become loud or desperate for attention. She stayed the same girl who worked quietly, who observed deeply, who spoke only when it mattered. And that's what made her different. That's what made her powerful. Years later, Amara became known far beyond the village. Her stories traveled to places she had never even seen. People who once ignored her now waited just to hear her speak. But if you asked her what really changed her life, she wouldn't say it was the applause. She wouldn't say it was the recognition. She would simply say this: I stopped waiting to be seen and started becoming someone worth seeing. And maybe that's the part most people miss. Because the world doesn't always notice you when you start. Sometimes it ignores you, doubts you, overlooks you. But that doesn't mean you're nothing. Just means your moment hasn't come yet. So if you feel invisible right now, if it feels like no one sees your effort, no one hears your voice, no one cares about your journey, remember Amara. Because the same silence that hides you today might be the silence that listens to you tomorrow. Keep building, keep learning, keep becoming, quietly if you have to. Because one day, the world won't be able to ignore you anymore. And when that day comes, it won't feel like luck. It will feel like truth finally being seen. And if this story spoke to you, if you've ever felt ignored, overlooked, or unseen, then you're not alone. Subscribe, because stories like this aren't just stories. They're reminders. And sometimes one reminder is all it takes to change everything.